So, finally, there's something that came up today. There's something that came up today over on Reddit talking about the Rise of Skywalker. Now, the movie's been out for a month and a half. It's apparently about ready to hit a massive 50-day decline, like the worst ever, according to Forbes, if you want to believe that. I don't know. The movie made $1 billion, way off mark from what I predicted, and I get that. But there's one element of it that there's a lot of problems with the movie. As much as a fan as I am, I can see there's lots of problems. And it's one of those things where we there's a lot of coverage about the making of the movie, a lot of coverage about the production of the film and what went wrong and how it went wrong and when it went wrong. Well, we got a little bit of insight into that today, and it's very brief, but it's also very telling. And this comes to us from Pablo Hidalgo, who has a protected Twitter account, who says, "Keep a secret. It was the first act of 9 that changed most during post, not the last. Don't tell the Raylos." Now, he does have a protected Twitter account, and that's because a lot of people out there, especially in the fandom menace, do not like Pablo Hidalgo. They think that he's a jerk, and they think that he's a bad guy, and they think that he's an SJW, and they don't like him. But this guy's job as a Lucasfilm employee, as part of the story group, is to basically kind of work that collective narrative, right? His job is to kind of forge the path and make sure it all kind of ties together. And that's what he does. So he's saying here, the first act of 9 is what changed the most during post, not the last. And you know what? I've seen the movie 3 times now, and I can tell you the first act is an absolute mess. One of the biggest criticisms about the first act of that movie is that it flies at breakneck speed. And I'm not just talking the light speed skipping. It flies so fast, you don't have time to breathe. It took me my third viewing to really kind of catch some of the things on the side and kind of like breathe in the environment, to live and experience in that environment, because it was happening so fast. And I'm still trying to figure out why. Now, or where specifically. Now, we know from the Jedi Paxis leaks that there were a whole thing with Kylo on Mustafar, and he was just cutting his way through Vader worshippers on Mustafar, and that was what we saw in the very beginning of the movie, post the opening scroll. He fought all those people, and then he found the waypoint, and he went off to Exegol. It happened so fast, it made no sense. It was very, very confusing. And I'm assuming that has a lot to do with the fact that they cut out that whole scene. Well, we know they cut out that whole scene. They cut out any kind of exposition because they just wanted to get straight to Palpatine. They wanted to get Snoke out of the way. They wanted to introduce Palpatine, and they wanted to set up that whole thing. That's one of the reasons why they released that 1.5-minute section online days before the film came out. They gave you the first couple minutes of the movie, basically, outside of the opening crawl and the Mustafar shit. Outside of that, it was they gave you the first 1.5 minutes. Like, they just spoiled this massive thing in the very beginning of the movie for like. Yeah, I think it was because they wanted to just dispel that myth, and they wanted to make sure that it was out there and people knew about it going into it, so they didn't feel blindsided by it. Or maybe it happened so fast because of all the tinkering that happened with the first act during post, that they felt that they had to, in order to give people that information, so they would have that on their mind going in. Because in storytelling, especially movie making, if you know that there's some backstory going into it, it does help in certain scenes that the average person who is unaware of anything may not have any of that. So this is what we know. But the whole thing of don't telling the Raylos, that's a little like, what was the point of that? Did they think that the right. If I recall, because Raylos be cray-cray. That's essentially what's going on. Raylos be nuts. They have sent death threats to JJ, death threats to Kathy, death threats to a lot of people. They cray. But my question then becomes, are they still upset about? I know a lot of them are upset about the way it ends, right? They're just like, why didn't Ray die and Ben live? Why didn't they get together? Why didn't they bump pelvises and have children? They're the Raylos. They obsessive compulsive comes to mind when you're talking about some aspects of that. But the Raylos out there, and I don't really have a problem with the Raylos. I actually really enjoyed the kiss at the end of the movie. I did. I really liked it. And it made sense that he had to die. But then again, the final act of that movie, to me, knew what it was doing. It did what it needed to do in the final act of that movie. But the first act of that movie, man, the first act up until he found Ochi's dagger, that was just wild. That was so fast. You know, like when Chewie, like leading up to Chewie's death, fake out, you know, whatever. There was so much there that just like, it's just crazy stuff. It's like, okay, fine. I want to know what I want them to do, and what I feel they need to do, what I feel will be the best course of action for them would be, in fact, to release an extended cut of the movie that has that has all that extra stuff put in there, the Oracle stuff, everything. And the reality of it is they're not going to do it, but they should. They really, really, really should. And it's one of those things too, where I kind of feel like this is where Hollywood is going, right? Like the Batman v Superman situation where they had a half-hour cutout of the theatrical. No one knew about it going in. And it wasn't until 2 months later, after the movie was ravaged by critics, ravaged by fans, failed to cross $1 billion. I think it tapped out at 860 million or something like that. And then they go, oh, by the way, we have another cut with an extra 30 minutes in it. And it totally filled in like 90% of the gaps, right? It just filled everything in. And you're like, wow, yeah, okay, cool. Like now I get it. What the hell? And it's almost like it felt like it was paid DLC for movies. And I kind of feel like that's going to happen. Like they're going to do like because movies are dying. Let's be fair, right? Like movie theaters are dying. There's no way around it. In 10 years, it's going to be a completely different landscape. I mean, it's already, it's a luxury thing now. It's why they're pushing that so hard. But for the average moviegoer, people just can wait till they get home on home video. You know, that's why streaming shows are as popular as they are. And I'm sorry, if you want to disagree with me, you're wrong. I've worked in the industry. I've seen it change. You know, a good half of my life to an extent spent working in that industry. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I just wonder if they're going to release these like truncated versions, you know, on home video or in theaters, and then release the full cut on home video to get you to buy, right? To get you to buy it. I don't know. I just, it feels that way. It's always kind of felt that way. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love extended cuts of films. Most of the time they're better. And most of the time I'm like, man, I would have loved to have seen that in theaters. Like the extended cut of Chronicles of Riddick, like almost watching a whole different movie. The original director's cut of Payback with Mel Gibson. Loved it. Loved the original. Loved the theatrical cut too. But I liked what they did with it. Lord of the Rings, for crying out loud. I mean, that's a big thing. You know, the only time that's not something I want is when it's something George Lucas has tinkered with. And you know I'm right. Anyway. I really want to know more about what Pablo here is saying. And so on the Star Wars Leak subreddit, people are going to be posting that information when it pops up. So I'll keep you guys informed. And as always, let me know your thoughts down below.